threw down the gauntlet. All right, Clarence, I got something for you. That's the first time that song has made me verklempt. Oh, thank you, Clarence. Yeah. So in the continuing saga that is my beginning here, when I first got here, there was a lot going on, as I've described on other Sundays. And I've talked about, the decluttering and other things that I had to take care of that were easy to do. But there were also some hard decisions that had to be made when I first got here. And one or two of them were particularly hard. We had someone here that was quite toxic and was not happy that I was here and was quite subversive in their activities. And it was quite a difficult time. In fact, it was so stressful for a few weeks that I had vertigo. And during those, it was probably about a 2-week period when I just kind of was watching what was going on, because sometimes we just need to think about what's happening, feel what's happening, because there was, what was going on was very subversive. So on the surface, things looked fine, but underneath I kept feeling this ugliness, and then I started hearing about ugliness, and so I would look at what was on paper, but was trusting my gut and in prayer and meditation about it and saying, okay, what is this? And last week I talked about understanding, so I needed to get to an understanding that was based in my divinity, my divine understanding, my trusting my gut, knowing that what I was hearing in my quiet time was something that I can trust, like we talked about last week, despite the fact that everything looked copacetic. I haven't used that word in a long time. What happened to that word? We've stopped using it. So there was a lot of smiling going on, and a lot of platitudes being used, which sometimes for me is a red flag when there's too much of that going on, and people saying a lot of nice things and smiling, but the smiles were kind of forced. And, when people are walking around saying, well, everything's fine, and their eyes are bugged out and things like that. So, yes, I was very much feeling it in my body that there was something amiss and that I was the one who was called to deal with it, because I've just stepped in as the one who's got the buck. Buck stops with me. And I was hired to turn things around. Let's start a new day. So I knew at some point that a new day was not going to happen with this toxicity. We were not moving forward with that. I was clear about that at some point. And the interesting thing is that vertigo went away as soon as I knew that, and I knew what I had to do. So I stayed in prayer and meditation until I was sure about that. And I know my signal for that, when I know that I know that I know, is that I feel this overwhelming peace, and no matter what it is I'm called to do, I'm cool with it. It might be scary, it might be messy in execution, but I do know I'm at peace with it, and I know what the next step is. So as soon as I knew that, I went to the board, and I said, this is what we're going to do. And there was like oh, geez, we can't do that. And I said, yeah, we can. And we are. So this is what you're tasked with. And I'm going to go home. You all talk about it. You make a decision. And then you call me and you let me know what you've decided. Because plan A is toxicity has to leave and I stay. Plan B is you want toxicity and I'm out of here because I ain't doing that. Amen. And I'm not doing that. I was clear. And I took myself home and I said, I'll talk to you in the morning. And so I left them to do their thing. And the whole time, I'm still feeling this peace because I'm good. I figured I can do ministry wherever now. I don't have to do it here if they decide they want to move forward in a different kind of way. I'm still feeling peaceful. I'm still okay. And I go home and I sleep well and wait for the call. And I'm still here. So obviously they went with plan A. So... But I got clear. I got clear, and then I had to move. So then, the thing that they didn't want to do, I had to execute. I had to execute. Yeah, that didn't happen that way, but yeah. So I executed it. It was quick. It wasn't pretty, but it got done. So that kind of action is the next power that we're going to talk about, which is will. And Unity calls that the executive power. It's the ability to choose, lead, and decide, and then move. The power of will. The disciple is Matthew, and he represents the decision-making part of the brain. So when I made that decision and I decided this is what this has to look like if we're going to move forward into a new day, then my body said, oh, okay, let's chill out because we're no longer in a conflict and it's time to move. And I knew what the decision was. I knew what I had to do. And so there was a two-step thing. Okay, board, here's what we got, and this is what I can do. And I knew that I either do ministry somewhere else or I do it here. And if we're going to move forward, this is how it looks. And so I executed my power of will, divine power of will. So this is actually from Winifred Wilkinson Hausman, who wrote Re-Educate Your Executive Faculty. She says, it is our job in developing our God-given potentialities to re-educate the will, the directing power of our mind, to teach it to become receptive to spiritual motivation rather than to goals determined by our materialistic pursuits alone. One way or another, we are using our will, our executive mind power all the time. We choose a course of action. We resist or resent. We submit or fight back. We aim high or we slide backward. Or we are willing to consecrate and dedicate our will to God and to let it be re-educated to go His way. Jesus was our great way shower in overcoming the human selfish motivation of the will and allowing it to be replaced by a great unification with the divine will, producing good for all. The interesting thing is, not everybody thought that was good for all, not in the immediate. But what I have since learned is that it was good for all later on. Like we talked about last week with understanding. Sometimes we don't understand right away. Sometimes it takes time, but if we remain open in the questioning period about what the heck is going on, if we remain open, then the answers come later. And that's when you have that aha moment. The rewards of unifying our wills with the will of God are great. They include happiness, health, joy, peace, harmony, prosperity, and other good that we cannot even visualize in our present state of consciousness. Learning to activate the divine will in your life does not mean that you will simply submit to the human will of others. Many inharmonies in human relationships result from the clash of human wills. Learning to activate the divine will in your life does not mean that you will simply submit to the human will of others. Instead, it will give you a new freedom that recognizes the human force applied by others, but does not submit to it. When you find yourself confronted by a strong will that insists you go its way, turn within to the Christ. And you are the Christ, the God self, the spiritual core of your nature, and silently say to the other person, the Christ in me beholds the Christ in you. Let the love of God and the understanding of the true spiritual nature of that other person pour forth from you so strongly that there is no conflict of human wills. Rather, there is a higher power at work, establishing harmony and order. We can start first to awaken the will and train it by consciously watching its activities and directing it through our growing spiritual understanding. So when I made the decision, I was good. The toxic person was not feeling so good, but once I stopped resisting, there was no fight. There's no tug of war if one of you drops the rope. The other one's just dragging rope. Just dragging rope. So this power of will is so important, and it allows us to step into life more gracefully, more confidently, more boldly, peacefully. Even when what you have to do is tough to do. Because then it's not so tough. Or, depending on how you're feeling about that, you know, like Clarence said, that God's got your back. And that what you're getting ready to execute comes directly from your divinity, comes directly from God through you into the situation, and allows you to step forward with that, even though it may be tough, confidently. Man, does that bring peace like a lot of other things cannot. How many times have you had to tackle something and you went in white-knuckling it and not sure of what was happening, afraid of it? I've done that so many times, babbling my way through something because I was relying on my human will to do something rather than the divine power of will. I had nothing to explain when I made the decision. I said, this is the decision. And this is what we're doing. No vertigo, no sleeplessness, no nothing. It was interesting that after the toxicity was out of here, for those of you who remember, we had a church that was renting from us. They were renting what is now the Serenity Suite. And so they had no idea what was going on in here. But the wife of the minister of that church came in prior to service, and she walked in and she said, "What happened? Everything feels so clear." She said, "Did you paint? Or did something happen?" Yeah, the atmosphere changed. Because the ugliness was gone. And everybody, even though those were some tough days leading up to that negativity heading out the door, everybody felt better. Everybody felt relieved, even if they didn't know what happened. Because the few people that we had coming to service at that time didn't know what happened. Just the board, and I knew about it. Everybody else was looking around wondering, did we put up new art? What's happening? I don't know. But this feels good. This feels good. This power of will. That's why I emphasize these 12 powers from Unity. They are so integral to leading a great life. a life overflowing with peace and joy. And if you can't have joy in the moment, you can certainly have peace. Certainly have peace. So this executive power, this thing that allows you to make decisions that you wouldn't normally make because you're relying on either the opinions of others, and there are billions and billions of opinions of others these days. My goodness. There are days I just wish, could everybody just shut up? Somebody stop talking. Can I watch a TV show without messages running across the bottom of the screen? Can we do that? Can I go to dinner and not have 15 TV screens all over the place with music playing and people talking on their phones? Can we do that maybe? And so we have to shut off all of that, and it's hard to do these days. We have to sit our devices down. We got to go sit in the silence, and we have to get with Spirit so that we can hear what we need to move forward. Because there is this force that's always saying, I got this, I got it. Listen, yoo-hoo. If you'd sit down for a minute, if you'd turn off the world and come to me in silence, I can tell you what's up next. I can tell you how to move forward. I can answer your question. I can help the headache go away. I can get rid of the vertigo. I can make your back stop hurting, because all of this stress shows up in ways, and each of us has a particular way that stress shows up in our bodies. And all of that can go if we'll just trust and move forward. So we talked about other powers on the way here, and again, we talked about the powers in the order of the way Jesus called the disciples. So faith was first with Peter, then strength with Andrew, then judgment with James, love with John, power with Philip, imagination with Bartholomew, and last week we talked about understanding with Thomas. And so as you get to will, you're going to use faith. You got to have faith that there is something that wants you to know that there's peace right here if you'll but listen to me. Strength, when you know that I can step forward boldly with this and not have to worry about anything or anybody. I don't care. I didn't care at some point what other people thought about my decision because I knew it was right. And I knew, and I decided what my plan B is, because if you don't want me to go there, I know what I'm going to do. Peacefully. That's right. And whatever people decided was fine with me. Whatever you decide. And everybody was just kind of cattywampus because I was peaceful about that. Just make a decision and call me. I'll be home. Judgment, discerning what you're hearing. Are you hearing what's in the world, and do you know if that's right or not? And is that in alignment with what you're hearing from your divine self? And if it's not, can you cast that out and walk away from it and just hear what's being said to you? Love, can you love yourself enough to do what's right? Can you love the others that are in the situation enough to do what's right? Because love always makes it good for everybody when you rely on divine love. Power, being able to execute, knowing that you can change from what's happening now to something else, being able to harness that energy and change it. That's what power is. Imagination, perhaps you're going to have to sit and think about, what do I want? I had to sit and decide and imagine, well, if they decide they don't want to go in the direction I'm advocating, then what do I do? And I had to sit with that for a few days and say, okay, I was excited about this opportunity, but if this goes awry for me, or well for me, first I had to imagine that that's Not a bad thing. Thought it was going that way, but things don't always work out that way, do they? We think we're heading one direction, all of a sudden, Spirit's got us going somewhere else. Perhaps I was only supposed to be here for a couple of weeks and then leave. So I had to imagine something different just in case they weren't going with plan A. Understanding. I had to be willing to sit in that question for a while. I was so uncomfortable. I don't know if you've ever had vertigo, but man, I felt like I was swimming, and I felt like the room was moving. I could barely drive. Every time I laid down, the room was spinning. It was terrible. I mean, it was a bad case of vertigo. But I had to sit with it, and I knew at some point, first of all, because I trusted that my body was telling me that something is off. That what you're seeing, the smiles you're seeing, are not real smiles. Do not trust them. That's what my body was saying. And every single time I ran up close to the person with the toxicity, that vertigo would start swinging through my head, and I'd say, oh, gosh. But I had to sit with it until I knew, all right, the smile on the face is not a smile of the heart. It's not a smile of the spirit. I had to discern that. I had to understand that and sit with it for a while and go, okay, this isn't making sense. I want it to make sense, but it doesn't matter what I want. What matters is the reality of the situation. And Spirit is helping me figure out what that is. So sit with it until I can be in alignment with it. And then say, okay, I hear what you're telling me to do. Okay, didn't really want to have to do that, but all righty. Because I didn't want the vertigo anymore. I was not going to do the toxicity, because that would have been a train wreck in here. It was already a train wreck. And I was at a point in my life, I don't do train wrecks anymore. That's not happening. That's not happening. So I had to understand. I had to sit in the questions, wait till the understanding came. And when I had that, then I delivered my message. This is what we're going to do. Plan A, plan B. You just let me know, because I'm cool. I'm cool with it. And we get to will. With Matthew, the center of the front brain. Just let it work. And if you're unsure, visualize that part of your brain lighting up. Visualize energy running through it. Know that that energy is God, and that it is helping you discern what's going on in all circumstances, with you, with other people involved, and how that affects their world, your world, the world. Because everything that affects us personally affects global consciousness. That's what I believe. So the longer we stay in toxicity and negativity, the more we contribute to the global consciousness of toxicity and negativity. We got enough of that going on. So I never want to contribute to that for me or for the world, So the power to decide, to move forward, to execute and step into life confidently and boldly with your divine self, as your divine self, as the hands and feet of God in any situation. That is the power of will. The power of will. And you do it unapologetically. People start questioning why you've decided something. Yeah, I don't have to explain it. This is what I'm doing. You can get with the program or not. It's up to you. Use your power of will to discern what you got to do, because I already know what I have to do. And you let it go. You let it go. And if you don't have a feeling of peace, then you're probably not on the right path. That's why prayer and meditation is important, so that you get acquainted with how you feel when you are in alignment with Spirit. I know mine is that peaceful feeling, and everything else just flows away from me. Everything that I worried about, everything my body was feeling, the conflict is gone from my head. I had no more questions about what there was to do. I was singularly focused on that situation, and I moved into it boldly and happily. So the power of will. You're using it anyway. But as the author of that reading said, are you going to use it for life-affirming choices? Or choices that are not life-affirming, that are destructive, that are negative, that are toxic? You can choose that route if you want. We all have free will. Whatever you choose, manifest in your world. Whatever you choose. Do you choose life is the question. Do you choose peace is the question. And the power of will get you there. Let's take this in a meditation. So breathe. Breathe again. Breathe some more. Deeply. You may have some decision you're avoiding or dancing around. Spirit may have been speaking to you for a while about something you need to do, something you need to say, something you need to let go of. Maybe you've put on blinders. Maybe you haven't wanted to hear. Maybe you hear but don't want to execute because you feel like you're not up to the task. What's that situation in your life? What is it? There is nothing too big, too difficult for an infinitely powerful spiritual being, which is what you are. What will you do with that situation? Knowing that even deciding not to do something or to ignore it or put your head in the sand is a decision. It's just not life-affirming. What's giving you a headache in your life right now? What's causing you to lose sleep? What's that nagging pain in your body that comes up whenever you think of this situation? What is it? And are you ready to be free of it? Look at that situation. Look at it plainly. Let yourself feel what you feel, have felt about it up until this moment. Let yourself feel it. And perhaps the pain in your body is coming back. Perhaps it makes you catch your breath. You feel the tears start to well up again. The frustration is rising. Now take a breath, a big deep breath, and exhale. But look at it this time with divine eyes. Look at it knowing that you are an infinitely powerful spiritual being with the power of the divine. Knowing that there is nothing that is greater than God. There is nothing greater than God. And whatever the situation is, God, the all there is, love, can heal it, can heal you, can heal all those involved in this situation. What is love asking you to do? What is love asking you to do? And as you contemplate that answer, know that love never asks you to do anything alone. The force of love that heals all things, bears all things. Is ready for you to say yes. Let's do this. Yes, I'm ready for more life, more love, more peace, more joy. Yes, I'm ready to step forward boldly, confidently, with the power of love in my body, mind, spirit, and heart. It's time now. It is time now. This is a meditation on the power of will by Reverend Bronte Colbert. My spiritual will is the energy of confident living, decision-making, and determination. My power of choice helps me stand strong and resilient when I feel challenged. I am able to respect the preferences of others while maintaining my own healthy boundaries. I make decisions that are grounded in my positive nature and expect them to unfold with perfect, joy-filled outcomes. I notice and appreciate synchronicities and sacred moments that are filled with the unmistakable presence of God. My mind, heart, and inner being recognize and rejoice in the infinite possibilities life offers me now. From an elevated spiritual view, I make choices that are life-affirming and growth-oriented. I move forward with confidence as I consciously choose each step on my path. Let's say that together. I move forward with confidence as I consciously choose each step on my path. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.